Yo, what's up guys? Jack here, hope you're all well. I'm back after a short break. Star Wars has been viewed, Christmas presents have been purchased, and the last few events of the year have been attended. Now, it's time to play some BF4 again. So do you want some more BF4 content? Do you want it for free? Well, good, because that's exactly what you've got. A couple of days ago, the Legacy Operations was made available to everyone for free in BF4 on PC, Xbox One and PS4, and it contains the Dragon Valley map that some of you will have tested previously in the CTE version of the game. As an FYI, it's not available on old generation consoles, so no dragons on Xbox 360 and PS3. I'm afraid. If you want to download the map, you'll have to search for Legacy Operations on the store to get it. If you played Battlefield 2, you'll undoubtedly remember Dragon Valley, a massive map with large open spaces, and you'll be glad to know that it has the same feel as the original. It's still a gigantic map, and when I say gigantic, I mean gigantic. 8 flags to be precise. Not only that, but there's so much detail in here as well. It's easily the biggest map BF4 has to offer, but that's not to say it hasn't had a few tweaks here and there compared to the original version. The overall layout will be very familiar with you, although it does play slightly different just because of the weapons and vehicles that BF4 has to offer. Some of the noticeable changes include the dam, which is now a fully built up area, whereas the original was pretty much just a solitary structure. Graphically, it looks awesome as well, with the water flowing around the dam and the massive waterfall just looking pretty sweet, especially from the air. The hill village has also progressed from a handful of houses to a full-scale village, and the centre temple area has increased in size quite significantly and easily provides some of the best infantry combat on the map. Moving between the temple point and the pagoda further down the hill can literally occupy you for most of the game as an infantry player, and then the armour and air vehicles tend to focus on the outer flags. This is a pretty interesting system because you tend to have pockets of combat all across the map. Vehicles battling it out on the outside and big infantry battles on the middle island, but that can also be a bad thing to a certain extent because heading to the outside of the map does require a vehicle, and if you're just running around as an infantry player, you do feel a little bit vulnerable, not to mention it just takes a really long time to run around this map because it's so huge. What's cool about the Dragon Valley map is that it has a feature that no other map in BF4 has: repairable bridges. Yes, you heard correct, it's a bit of BF4 magic. Now if you played Battlefield 2, this isn't something that will shock you, but it's a feature that's never been brought across to the current Battlefield games until now. Teams can destroy the bridges, stopping the opposing teams from crossing the water with ground vehicles, but if you're organised, you can fight back and repair the bridge with an engineer. If any enemies are on the bridge and you manage to destroy it, you're actually going to get the kill credit. It's pretty awesome to see one of the less remembered features from Battlefield 2 making its comeback, a small thing but welcomed nonetheless. The one thing that you might notice that's missing though is the oil pipeline that runs through the level. This was a prominent feature in the original map, but it hasn't made it to the new version because it just takes up too many map resources and doesn't really offer anything in return. That's not the only omission though, some things were actually removed from the test versions. The volumetric cloud layer had to go and various buildings across the level replaced with default assets to save on some much needed resources. Let's not get too bogged down with that though, because overall I still think it looks fantastic and it's easily one of the best looking BF4 maps. In terms of game modes, you can of course play Conquest Large as you would expect. The original version was actually set up for Conquest Assault, but that won't be making an appearance, but you can play Conquest Small if the large version isn't to your liking. Rush is also available, and considering how large this map is, you'll have 5 MCOM stages to attack, which is actually what we used to have in previous games for the most part, and because of that, it's called Classic Rush. I personally really like Rush on this map. I think it's actually one of the best in BF4. Some of the vanilla maps especially were pretty terrible on Rush, but I think DICE LA have really taken this Rush map to the next level, and it's incredibly fun, especially when you're attacking. Obliteration and air superiority are also supported on the main map if that's your thing. For smaller game modes though, we've got something a little bit different. I'm sure you've all already seen it by now, but remember the popular TDM map called No Shore Canals on BF3? Well, DICE did a double whammy and decided to make the docks area of the main map into a No Shore Canals remake, or maybe a love letter to the older map, whatever way you might look at it. And that means that all of the smaller game modes like TDM, Domination, Gunmaster and Squad Deathmatch will all be played on this version of the map. It seemed that every man and his dog would jump onto No Shot Canal's TDM in BF3, just have a quick game or to warm up or whatever you wanted to do, and it became somewhat of an iconic map because of that. The remake is pretty good, but it isn't perfect. There are some scaling differences and a few tweaks here and there, and it really does make a difference. It's still a fun team deathmatch map to play on, but it doesn't ever quite capture what I remember from playing the map in Battlefield 3. Maybe it's the scale, maybe it's the movement and weapons in BF4 not quite being the same. I'm not quite sure, but it just doesn't feel as good. Not only that, but somehow it just looks a bit bland. I can't quite put my finger on why, but it doesn't look visually good compared to the main map. You could even argue that it looks worse than the BF3 version, in my opinion. As you would expect with any of the operation updates, there was also some base game updates including game fixes and weapon changes. I will link the patch notes down below if you want to check up on all those specific things. Overall, if we take night operations, then the community operations, and now the legacy operations, we're getting regular free content released to BF4 well after its DLC cycle has ended, and that has to be something really good. There's still a massive player base playing Battlefield 4, and even though we've already heard rumours of Battlefield 5 being in production, DICE are still committed to updating and providing new content for BF4. If you view everything as a whole, over 2 years after release, there's a massive amount of content in the game. Will there be any new content for BF4? Well, maybe we'll get to see nighttime versions of Golmud Railway and Shanghai. I doubt it, but fingers crossed. And that's all for today, guys. I hope you liked this little update video. Let me know your thoughts on the new map down in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, thumbs down if you didn't, and I'll see you in the next one.